Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan Hoy. I'm with HotDocs, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar about NebDocs, and in particular the Probate System 5 forms that are part of the NebDocs subscription. First, I want to again thank you for your time joining us today. I will spend about an hour going through the Probate System 5 on NebDocs. The rough outline of today's presentation or the webinar is to walk you through a brief overview of document assembly, what it is, and then the process of actually subscribing to NebDocs, logging into NebDocs, going through working sessions, and then working through the setup for Probate System 5. It's a very robust document assembly system, the Probate System 5, and it's actually probably more complicated, I would argue, than some of the other forms that are available in your NebDocs subscription. So that's why we'll spend some time and probably the full hour going through this. So as you can see from my screen here, I'm at the HotDocs Market website. This is where you'll go to purchase a subscription to the NebDocs product. One thing about document assembly, just to take a step back, the idea behind document assembly is to take forms or documents you might use over and over again in your practice and turn them into templates. In other words, an underlying set of data or an underlying set of language or clauses and things like that that don't really change, and marry it to variable information. And you'll see what I mean in a moment. But the purpose of document automation is to improve the speed, the accuracy, and the time you spend, as mentioned on speed, with your clients. So you can spend more time with your clients rather than on your documents. Again, you'll see this in just a moment. So to get to NebDocs, to make a purchase of this subscription to NebDocs, you want to go to hotdocsmarket.com. And I believe the NebDocs, there may be a link directly to NebDocs from the Nebraska State Bar Association website. NebDocs can be found on the third page. The NebDocs product is a members-only product, meaning you have to use your email address that you have registered with the Nebraska State Bar Association, and that will allow you to actually make the purchase. There is a discounted NebDocs product for first-year attorneys. If you are interested in that product, I recommend speaking with the Nebraska State Bar Association directly, and they can get you sorted out with that. But today, we'll go into the purchase of NebDocs as I'll say a regular subscriber. So you click on the product, NebDocs, and you'll see this overview tab as well as a library. The library you can search for free. Actually, any of these initial products you can search for free, and you can find the various forms that are included in NebDocs. 584 templates covering anything from, for example, civil practice forms to trusts, and of course our Probate System 5, which is what we'll be working through today. Note that the output document, the format has been decided by the Bar Association as the publisher. So in many cases, this will be a PDF, excuse me, a Word document, but there are instances where you'll see PDFs, for example, in the protective orders. One other thing to note, that as part of your subscription to NebDocs, you also have access to practice manuals. These are the most recently updated version of these manuals. And again, for a subscription price of $1.99 per user, it's quite a good deal. So once you've decided that you want to purchase the product or a subscription to the product, you log in and you add it to your cart. And this is like any sort of transaction, any sort of e-commerce transaction, so say, for example, on Amazon.com or something like that, where you'll put your first name, your last name, your credit card information in, and you'll create an account. And what will happen is you'll see this page where you register here. And again, this is where you want to use your email address that's on file with the Nebraska State Bar, because that's what will allow the purchase to occur. The CAPTCHA information is just to prove that you're a human being, not a robot. And you'll have to click the accept the terms and conditions in order to complete the purchase. And this will allow you to create an account. So once you've created your account, and I'll go ahead and sign in, this screen will appear, and you'll put the account information that you just created into this screen, or into these fields, excuse me. Now this is our test account for HotDocs. So what you're about to see is, it will look slightly different than what you'll have as a subscriber yourself. In other words, this test account has multiple subscriptions to, or has a subscription to multiple products. Most HotDocs market subscribers typically only have 1 or 2 products. So just kind of keep that in mind, and that will come into play and when I'm demoing the Probate System 5 as well. So again, I have lots of subscriptions under this test account. You'll probably only have 1 or 2, and here's my NebDocs subscription. So just a little bit about the account page. The first thing you'll see is your working sessions. This is, think of this as your electronic desktop, if you will, where you can see the products that you have completed, or excuse me, the items that you've completed for your client, or ones that are in progress. One thing that you'll note is that the system saves your work automatically every 30 seconds, but there is an option to save it manually. The point is that the content that's saved while in process will appear in the in progress tab here, or you can go to your completed tab. As mentioned, you have all, you can look at everything you've worked on. The answer source we'll get to in just a moment, but I did want to point out that this working session is, again, sort of like your electronic desktop. As part of your subscription, you have access to the support line for HotDocs. This is completely free. There's no charge for the call. It's manned by our staff in Utah. They are native English speakers, and they are open from, I believe it's 9 a.m. Eastern through 6 p.m. Eastern. You can email them, you can call them. Typically, the folks in our Utah office or the customer support line will be able to answer questions about the functionality of HotDocs Market rather than the content itself. And that's primarily because we, HotDocs, are not the authors of the content. We didn't create it, so to speak. We simply provide the tool that allows you to assemble your documents once you're ready to put them together. So if you do have questions regarding the content specific to the Nebraska State Bar Association product, NebDocs, you'll want to reach out to NebDocs, and they can answer questions. Excuse me, you'll reach out to the State Bar, and they can answer questions specific to the content. Some other things to note within this page: if you click on transaction history, you can take a look and see how, if you click on the document icon, you'll see what you ordered, how many licenses you have, what the renewal cost is. You can change your credit card information here if you need to update a credit card. So this is really just a chance to take a look at your transactions. Content sharing. This feature here allows you, if you have more than 1 license, for example, say you have 5 people in your firm who all have a subscription to NebDocs, what this will allow you to do under the Manage Sharing button is allow you to invite others to use the license or revoke the license. So let's say, for example, you have a 5-seat license and one of your colleagues is going on maternity or paternity leave. You can go into that content manage sharing, revoke the license that the person who's going on maternity or paternity leave, revoke that access, and invite someone else during that time to use their license. And then when they come back, you can revoke that temporary person's access and re-invite the original subscriber. So it's just a way to maximize the use of your subscriptions. The connected applications. This is a forthcoming feature on HotDocs Market. We are working with third parties such as Clio or Amicus Brief, some of these other practice management vendors to try and work so that their data will be able to flow into HotDocs Market. It's not available yet. We are working diligently on this, but once it is available, the connected application feature will work. The My Details tab, this is just an FYI. This is what allows you to manage your account as a subscriber. So the lead subscriber would have the account management functionality, and it allows things such as changing passwords. You can view the recent activity of those of your license, so you can see where you signed in, things like that. It also allows you on this tab to update your credit card. So it's either on the transaction history or the My Details where you can update your credit card. The communications feature, this is what allows you to be updated regarding changes to NebDocs. So one of the advantages of HotDocs Market and NebDocs in particular is that when the Bar Association as a publisher makes changes to the forms, either they add forms or there's a change required by, say, a judicial ruling in the state Supreme Court, you get those updates automatically. As soon as the Bar Association updates the forms, you as a subscriber to NebDocs on HotDocs Market get that update instantly. So you can practice knowing you're using the most recent version of the form. The opt-in, I would recommend leaving this as opt-in because you'll get the email alerting you to the fact that you're using a new version of the form. There is the option to receive email about changes to HotDocs Market and offers from other publishers. That's at your discretion. But again, my recommendation is to stay opted in for the updates to your NebDocs subscription. The interview options, this document, or excuse me, this feature here allows you to disable the auto save feature on the cloud. HotDocs Market is a cloud-based product. It is a double encrypted system. In other words, the data that is stored, or the answers that are stored rather, are encrypted on the way up to the cloud, and then the assembled document is encrypted on the way back down to your machine. You can disable that feature. The downside to that is, however, you would have to access, you could only use the machine on your desktop, for example. Because HotDocs is cloud-based and you use this web-based email address to get in, you can use any device. It can be a Microsoft Surface, it can be an iPad, it can be an iPhone, of course a laptop, and your desktop, of course, as well. But the point is, if you decide to disable the interview save feature, you will be obligated to use your desktop, and you won't be able to access your answers from another device in that scenario. So my recommendation is to stay opted in with this auto save feature. Okay, so that's the sort of the short and sweet of the administration of your subscription account. So let's get into NebDocs, and in particular the Probate System 5. So let's assume we've made our purchase, and we'll go to My Account. We've made our subscription purchase of NebDocs. And we're going to go into this feature here. So you simply click on the name of the product, and it will bring up all of the folders, all the forms that are available within your subscription. Note that for the $1.99 per seat, you have unlimited access. It's an all-you-can-eat model, so you can use these forms as many times as you like. There's no limit on this, as long as you have a current subscription. Okay. So as I mentioned at the start, the Probate System 5 is a bit different than the other forms within NebDocs. It's a pretty robust system that requires a number of setup steps before you can really enjoy and use the power of the system. This feature here, and I again would recommend you follow the steps here: set up firm, contacts and judges for probate templates. As they wisely point out, you really do need to complete this information first. So we'll click on this document here, and we'll click on Edit Answer Source. The default, and I've set this default for my account, is firm 01, but you can change that around. So we go to Click Answer Source, and you'll see the logo for NebDocs. And by the way, while we're waiting for this to load, if you have questions regarding NebDocs or HotDocs in general, feel free to use the chat window. I will be monitoring this and we'll be able to answer as needed. So now we enter the firm information. This is our law firm. For the sake of today's demo, I've created just a made-up name for a law firm. You want to, obviously put the name in there. You can check to enter or revise the details in your office. So in other words, let's say I have multiple offices, or I only have one, but it gives you the option to add multiple offices. For today's demo, I'm just going to have the main office. And I've edited this information. I added this here. You can also add the number of attorneys in the firm. So let's say we have, I call this Dewey and Mars, and so we have Jessica Dewey, made up name, and then Sarah Mars. but you can add an additional one if you so choose. So let's do that. And then you can also change the number of staff. So if we're going to add attorneys, so we have 3 here. So there's Sarah Mars. Let's add another by doing this. So you open this navigation pane. We had Jessica here, Sarah, and we're going to add another attorney. We'll say it's Joseph Andrews. And then with the drop-down menu, you can choose the associate, attorney at law, etc. We'll just have him as an associate. Male. We'll put his initials here. His email address, joeandrews@deweyandmars. There we go. His bar ID number, I'll just make something up here. City, we'll say he's in Omaha. And I believe Omaha is in Douglas County, if I'm not mistaken. Put a phone number in for him. And then we move on to the next dialogue. And this next dialogue, you'll see, will move us to the firm staff. So we have one staff member, John Jones, the legal secretary. Let's say we add another. Oh, actually, we should put in the phone number for this individual. Just making these up. But let's add another staff member. Let's give me a bit of pause here. I'll tell you, we'll move over to firm preferences there instead. So these are the preferences, and the reason we're putting these preferences is because that all the information we're entering now will appear on the various forms that we generate. So for example, in our form for Dewey and Mars, they prefer to include the date of death in the court caption form for all forms, but that's an option. You can select or deselect it. And we can check to include the attorney name and address under the heading prepared and submitted by on all the court forms. Again, it's optional, but for today's demo, I'll show how that appears. In terms of annotation options, you can use standard. In other words, it's only the data that's found in the file, or if you want to annotate that the information, you can click that option as well. But for today's demo, we'll choose standard only. Okay, so now we'll move through this. So contact manager, this is a system that allows you to add additional information on your contacts, such as say for example creditors or bankers, etc. I'm going to enter the information here, and you'll see if we go to the next dialog, so you can use the arrows here to navigate through this pane, or you can use the tree on the left here. Let's just change let's click on firm contacts. So let's make Omaha Times. This is an entity. We'll say it's a newspaper. Let's say it's a corporation organized in Nebraska. I don't have their ID number. We'll just put a little asterisk. If you don't, this is sort of a cheat sheet here, but if you don't have the ID number, just put a little asterisk in there just to fill the field. Same thing for the officer and agent, and we'll just put there. I just put a made-up address for the newspaper's home address, and then again I put asterisks in just to fill in the fields here for telephone and fax. Okay, so we'll move on to our next one. We said Omaha Power and Light. Again, just making this up. We'll add some more information here by putting the asterisks. And I'll make up an address for these folks. I'll say they're in Nebraska. We'll make it easy and use Douglas again. We'll put a phone number for these folks. We'll leave the fax blank. And then our third entity, our contacts, we'll say it's the bank. We'll just make this up. We'll put the officer and agent. Again, these are some fields that I had filled in earlier for the sake of today's demo. The next field you want to do is the load the judge information. You can click here, and the nice thing about the Probate System 5 is that it will load all the judges as it relates to the various counties in Nebraska. So you don't have to go and find that information. That's already preloaded for you. I've already, as I've said, mentioned, loaded this in, but you would simply click on this button here to load that info. And as you can see, all the judges have been added here. And if you do need to make a change, you can do so. But again, it's already been preloaded. And here, it's probably easier to use the tree along here to navigate down to the bottom, because otherwise it's going to take you through each one using this arrow button. So once we're at the end, we want to click on this Finish Interview. And what this does is it basically assembles it. It takes all the information that we've just entered about ourselves as attorneys, the contacts, all that info is ready to go for any of the probate system we're going to work, or probate files that we're going to fill out. So once we've done that first step, what we want to do is go back to My Account. So you click on My Account, and now we go back into NebDocs, and now we're ready to take the next step with Probate System 5. So we go to NebDocs, Probate System 5, and now let's open up a new probate file. In the interest of time and for today's demo, I'm going to use a very simple system, or a very simple example. It may not be, hopefully be relatively close to reality, but let's just assume in our example we'll have the decedent is a widower and he has one child. So just kind of keep that in mind again, and I'm doing this primarily for the sake of time. But as you can imagine, the system can work on multiple scenarios like that. So we'll click on Open New Probate File. And we're asked to name the working session. So if you remember when I started the conversation today, walking through the various setup of HotDocs Market, this is essentially, or My Account, sorry, this is essentially your work desk and what your client matter is going to be. So we'll give our decedent a name, but you can put numbers, you can put first name, last name, is completely up to you. The default is to title this by the file name and then today's date. So let's just call our client, let's see, Roger Moore, probate, September 12. And then what we'll do is we'll create a new session. If you notice in this slightly grayed out area, it says the session will use the following answer source, if available, firm 01. So this is all that information we filled in for Dewey and Mars. In other words, this will be at the ready. So as we select the various elements in terms of which attorney is working on this, which office is being used, that's the file that it will pull from. The advantage is you don't have to re-enter that data. You've already done that, and you can use it over and over again. So the first thing you'll see is this estate file. This is the front page, and here's where we start to fill in details about our decedent. So case matter reference number, this is for your own internal use. So if you have a particular numbering system you want for your matter, and we said it was Roger Moore. Oops, Roger James. Let's put it this way. File ID. This is not the case number. Enter the estate details. It's maybe the number filed with the court, if you have it. So I'm just going to make this up. And let's assume for this today's example, we don't have the estate EIN at the moment, so we'll put an asterisk there. Who's the responsible attorney on file? If you recall, we added, we have our 3 attorneys for Dewey and Mars. We'll just say, for the sake of argument, it's Jessica Dewey. She's our responsible attorney. And who's the paralegal? Well, we only had one, so we'll put his name here. In the office where the lawyers practice, we only have one office location, so we'll use that office name. If you notice, I can designate co-counsel, and so let's use we'll use Joe Andrews, the gentleman we just added earlier. The next step is to identify the date of the document is. So it can be a particular month, current month, next month. Obviously, it depends on how far along we are with the probate. So let's just say next month. And the firm correspondence will be signed by Is it the primary attorney, co-counsel, etc.? Let's just say it's the primary attorney. And notice how Jessica Dewey's name automatically comes up. So now we've filled in this information. We'll go ahead and finish the interview, or we have the option to save the answers. If you notice right now it says not saved, that's because the system cycles through and saves every 30 seconds, as I'd mentioned before. But for I'll show you both. There it goes. It just changed to saved. But again, I'll save it manually here simply by clicking on this little document, or this little button here. The button to the right is Answer Summary. If you click on here, you'll get a list of all the answers that we've provided. So for example, here's the name of our decedent, all the information. If you do click on one of these buttons, you can print this, of course, but I'm going to go back to the interview. If I click on Finish Interview, this will simply ensure that I have the data entered. And then I want to hit this button, Return to Interview. Okay, so now we start doing our documents. This is our master information list. If we click on Master Information List, we have the estate file, the master info file, the decedent details. So now we start to enter the information about our decedent, Roger James Moore. He's male, Social Security, I'll just make this up. That's 7 numbers, there we go. Date of birth, you can either manually enter this, or you can use the calendar icon. But for today's demo, I'll just manually enter this. Let's say 1945. Let's make it a little bit older, 1938. Date of death. There's a little trick within HotDocs. If you type the letter T and hit the tab button, it will automatically insert today's date. And if you notice, it's automatically calculated his age at death. Did the decedent use an alias? Obviously, you click that here. What was his domicile time at time of death? We'll say Omaha, Nebraska. We'll say he established domicile in, I'll make this up again, 05, let's say 1965, making this up. Circumstance of birth, was he just born in a foreign country? Let's just say no, let's say Omaha, native here, Nebraska. Marital status at time of death. Again, for today's demo, I'm just going to make him a widower to make this a bit easier. Does he have any living children? In our example, we said yes. So we'll say that surviving parent he's of all child. He's the surviving parent, but actually there's no students. We leave that blank. Sorry. Is surviving spouse, parent of decedent's children. So he has no spouse and is a widower. So he has one living child. Circumstances of death, if we want to add this here, we can click to specify the details. The place of death, let's just say it's Mercy Hospital. Length of illness, let's say 1 month. Cause of death, let's say heart failure. You can add the names of the attending physicians at the time of death. Let's say Dr. A.J. Patel. And then you can make the address up for the, or you would enter the address for the hospital. Main Street, Omaha, Nebraska. Making some of that up too. His occupation. So we'll go ahead and put some details about his employment history here. We'll say he was retired at 79. Prior occupation, let's say he was a manager. Let's just say for today's example, we only had one employer. Let's say it was, trying to think of an employer there in Omaha, let's say Union Pacific. And then we'll put the address. Okay, now let's just say he had the one job. And if you notice, from a navigation standpoint, you just have to move the scroll bar along. Oops. Okay, so now we can move to the next screen, and the purpose of putting all this information is it will become obvious once we start to bring in some of the documents to construct for our probate system. So go to the next dialog. You can see it scrolls along here, the will details. So let's say the decedent did not leave a will for the sake of today's demo, but we'll say, well, actually, I will leave that here. And you'll see this in a moment. We'll have to actually enter a will. You'll see this in just a second, the will being probated. And let's say there's a codicil to the will. What it will require you to do is to go to the testamentary documents and list to add the codicil, and we'll do that in just a moment. So let's scroll through the, let's say no bond is required, and we'll just say not requested. Click on the next one, estate and court details. So let's say we're in county court, judicial district 4th, County of Douglas. The case number. So if you notice, now we can start to pull in the judge information that was already preloaded. So we go down to where our judges are found. And this is for Douglas County, so we'll just use Judge Marcuso, and it automatically populates. So I don't have to do any of that information myself. Are we going to have a personal representative for this client? Yes, we are. So we'll say the date of the appointment is today, and we need to add a personal rep, and you'll see this in just a moment. Do we want to store information about publications such as the obituary, for example? So we already enter Omaha Times, and that automatically comes through. Now we'll do the PE in just a moment, excuse me, personal representative, the PR in just a second. I'm going to save the answers. Let's see. So we will go back to estate file, and we're going to show the documents here. So the party list. This will be for our parties here, the interested party. So we'll say that Roger has one child. It's a female. Let's say it's Sally Ann Moore. In this case, her role, she is the personal representative. She's a petitioner. She's a beneficiary, and she's a child and an heir. So all the conditions that apply to our personal representative, or interested party rather. As you can see here, it gives information about there's a drafting tip and how to choose which class that our personal representative or our interested party exists. In this case 1, she's a child, so we class 1. And we can enter her information here. So we've got it here, that's the reference. First name Sally A. Moore. And then you can put a citation. This is the way that the documents will be drafted. Sally. Put her address here. Let's say she's in Nebraska as well. Let's say she's also in Douglas. Address. Omaha. We'll make up a telephone number for her. Okay, and you can add a cell phone, obviously. I'm going to, for the sake of drafting, add these little asterisks here just so they won't be filled in when you see the assembled document in a moment. But I will put an email address for her. SallyAMoore@gmail.com. Relationship to the decedent, she is a child, or daughter in this case. Let's say she never married for our purposes here. Social Security, make that up, and then her date of birth, we'll use the calendar icon just to show you how that works. Let's say she was born in 1975. Let's do it that way. We'll just do the 16th. She's not a minor, she's not incompetent. Is represented by an attorney who's listed on the firm's master contact list. We can click that if you so choose, and then you can choose, you can enter the information here. But I'm actually going to leave that blank for the sake of the demo. Interest in the estate, should she be listed in the probate as interested party? Yep, that's already there. Describe any financial property interest the party has in the estate. inheritance. Let's see, she is going to be the personal representative in this case. We'll say she's the first priority. Let's see. Check if the appointment as a personal representative has been terminated. No, not in this case. Will she be compensated for serving as the personal representative? We'll check yes. We'll add her compensation at, let's say $1,500. I'll say it's a check from the estate. Now, notice of proceedings, she's not going to waive any of, she wants all the documentation. So we'll have her put no waiver. And then distributions to party calculated, check to review distributions to Sally Ann. So we click here, party ID, you can add this information. But for today's demo, I'm just gonna skip that. Now let's say there's another interested party. Let's say it's the bank, if you will. So we would say Bank of Omaha. Actually, it's Bank of America. Let's say the mortgage is there. It's an entity. In this case, the role is, let's see, I guess you'd say they're administrator, sorry, let's see, the role is to benefit, they wouldn't be a beneficiary of the state. So let's just, let's leave this blank for the time. I will say they're a beneficiary because they get a part of this. They wanted to leave a charity to the bank or something like this. So we'll click there. Then we move through the information here. So the decedent details we'd already filled in. Any living children, we have that there. If you notice, Sally Ann Moore has already been carried over. So click on the will details, and again, we'll get back to this, the will being probated, and we'll get into the codicils in just a moment. So the estate value, we already have that information. Estate and court details, we've already included that. And notice how as soon as I click Sally Ann Moore, this turns green, meaning I can assemble the documents. Again, for today's demo, I'm going to leave the, avoid or leave some of these ancillary proceedings. We'll leave things like safety deposit box blank, life insurance policies. Well, actually, let's, for the sake of demo, I'll show you one of those. One policy. And if you notice, when I click on these, if I was to remove that click or add it, you can see how the policy details come up. So let's go to insurance policy. Let's just say it's policy number, let's make something up. Oops. And we'll say that Sally Ann is the beneficiary of the policy. Net proceeds, we'll just say it's $200,000. Policy owned by the decedent. And we'll say no other files been claimed. Let's see, transfers of property. We'll say that the decedent did not create any transfers or any trusts. Funeral expenses, we can itemize the funeral expenses, or we can simply just put the anticipated total in here. So let's say 35. Well, let's say $4,000. Oops. Check if any Social Security death benefits have been paid. Because we haven't had our client die today, I will not put the death benefits there. Unpaid, are there any unpaid medical expenses? Total doctor bills, let's just say it's $2,500. Hospital bills, another 1,000 there. And other medical bills, $580, $568, excuse me. And you can itemize them if need be, and reimbursements, etc. So if we go through, we have allowances and deductions here, and we can update the total. So these are our worksheets. I'm going to skip this again for the sake of today's demo, but you can see how you would fill these components out. Any unsecured debts, charitable devices, and property received, things like this. You can see all these. So once I have all that data in, I'll finish the interview. It says I want to answer a question. That would be a field, for example, like a fax number that I may have not filled in. And if I do need to go back to that and see what that may have been, I will click Return to Interview. And it takes me right back to where I left off. So again, using this, you can use the answer summary, and this will give you a list of all the answers you provided. As you can see here, go back there, and you can always print that off. I can, if I use these guidance here, I can show the interested parties. So this will give me that list here, or I can hide them. This just sort of helps with the navigation of this this document. Show assets and distribution, you can see that there. I can hide documents, things of that nature. And you can see once you click those, it changes. So let's go ahead and start adding some forms to this probate file. Again, the purpose of putting all this information in up front is that we can now automatically deliver it to other documents, or other probate documents. So what you want to do is click on Use Another Template. So once you've opened your case or your probate for your client, you'll click on Use Another Template. Click on Add a New Template to this session. Now again, because this is my demo account, you won't have to do this. You'll just go straight to NebDocs. So just bear with me a second while I get down to that. You'll go back into Probate System 5, and you'll see that we already have a black or a check mark by the file we've already opened. If I want to choose another form, I can simply click on Nebraska Tax, whatever the file may be. Some folks are familiar from the prior Probate System 5 system with the forms by number. If you click on forms by number, you can get to whatever you might need. So let's say I'm going to use form let's do 107, motion for hearing change of notice. So if I click on that, it will change the template. Basically, it imports this template into my working session we're doing for Roger Moore Probate. And it will automatically populate the relevant data fields into that request for hearing. If you'll notice, it's right here, form 101. So let's click on that form that we have to put the name of the applicant here. So let's say it's Sally Ann Moore's requesting this. Title of the petition, motion to change, I am making this, United States Postal Service. She's mailing it. Navigate here. And one neat feature, once you start bringing forms into your probate, if you click this icon here, this document preview, you can see what the output document will look like before you actually send it out. So as you can see, here's our, it's already formatted for you. And the language as drafted by the Nebraska State Bar Association is automatically populated here. We have our client name, her address, etc. We have the attorney information, because if you recall, we had asked for that that information to be incorporated on every document. So that's what it'll look like. So what happens if we actually want to print this out or assemble this? So once we have our form in, we click Finish Interview. It will assemble the document for us. And now all I need to do is click on this assembled document form. So if I click on this button here, you can see that it's a Word output. If I click on the document itself, it'll bring up Word. And here's my document. Now it's ready to go. I can email this. I can print this off, etc. Let's say, for example, I'm not, I have a preferred language that I might at least like to use in these type of forms. So instead of saying the undersigned request, let's say the, I'm making this up, represented party requests. You can make those edits to the underlying document once it's in an output format. The nice thing is, or the one thing to keep in mind is that the change that you make on this output document will not make its way back up to the template. Rather, it's only germane to this particular form. So then you would save this and then print this off and say, or email it, or do whatever you might need to for your client with this. So a question came in, where we go and fill our master information. When we go to some of the document each time, do we get the pop-up that we have unanswered questions but no idea where the answers are missing? So that's a good question. So you can go to the, let's go back to return to interview. You can go to the unanswered questions, or you can find them by the answer summary. And once it loads, here we go. The answer summary feature will show you, for example, I filled in this, and I put the asterisk here, so that would be a blank field. That would show you where you have an unanswered question. We don't have, for example, inventory or testamentary documents. It's blank there, so you can use this answer summary feature to find where some of your blank fields are, or all of your blank fields are, I should say. Hopefully that answers the question. So let's go ahead and add another form, another template to our session here. So again, we'll go to add a new template. We'll get to our NebDocs file, which again will be faster and easier for you. Probate System 5. I'll again use this forms by number feature, and just to demonstrate the fact that, look, you can see, oh, I've already completed form 107. So let's just do form 202, notice of hearing. So it'll change the template. Here's my form, 203. If I click on here, let's say we know the date of the hearing. So let's just say it's 09/25/2017. And again, you can use the calendar icon. Let's say we don't know the time of the hearing. So we start to roll through here. Instructions to publisher. Number of the copy of publication to be sent to counsel, publication date. We'll just choose 29th. I'm just making this up here. We'll say 3 copies. Drafting tip. If you've completed a HotDocs interview before you finish, you save your answer file, and that can be saved through here. It does automatically save this as mentioned. But let's go ahead and assemble the interview, or assemble the form. So now we have form 2103, or 202, I should say. And there we go, there's our notice. And again, everything has been filled out for us. And granted, this is a smaller document, but the point is, we didn't have to recreate this. We didn't have to re-enter and type all this information in. And again, if you think about it, just what I've demonstrated today so far, this in some ways would save you an incredible amount of time, such that one client might well cover that $200 subscription to all 586 templates, including Probate System 5 here on the NebDocs product. So again, the process would be to continue to add forms as you need them. Let's say I get called away and I need to take a client call, another client call. What I can do is come right back into my, I can pick this up where I left off. So all I would do is in my working sessions, click on the Roger Moore Probate. I can rename it. Let's say we want to add his middle name, for example. I think we said Roger Allen Moore, if memory serves. That's just a demonstrate how you can change the name. We then click on the probate forms, or excuse me, his file. And there we are, and we're right back to where we started. One thing to note, there is a way to generate a blank form. One of the questions that came in was, is there a way to enter an answer so that it populates a blank line to be filled in by the court? There is. What you can do is simply put, like I said, an asterisk or an underscore on the field that would be completed by the court itself, sort of a shortcut, if you will. But I'm going to show you, if you want to just generate a blank form, how that will work. So we click on generate blank form. This will be for this particular product, or this particular form, I should say. And just like that, we have our blank version of that form. The question was specifically as to a date. Yep, if you leave it blank, the system should generate the blank date as well. It would just be a line, because I had this, I think in this example we used the date of September 25th. You would just leave that blank. I'm not going to save this one. So let's go back to the interview. And again, you can imagine there are a lot of different forms in here, and we're somewhat constrained by time today to demonstrate this. But I hope what I've been able to show you is not only the value of the system here, but just the relative ease at which you can use to create these various documents for a probate. Full disclosure, I'm not an attorney, so if I've made some wild assumptions in terms of this example, I do apologize. But again, my purpose is just show you the elements and the various steps you need to take in order to actually get the most out of your subscription. So I'm going to pause there and open up for any questions. Feel free to use the chat window, or if you'd like to see another template, I'm more than happy to show you what that would look like. Actually, in the meantime, I'll pull the wills here. So let's go. While I'm waiting to see if there's any questions, let's look at, oops. Let's look at the wills. Will details. Testamentary documents. Okay, so what we want to do in that is go to our, use another template. Question came up, is there a way to populate an inheritance tax worksheet with data from inventory? Right now it gives us a blank worksheet. That, I believe, is not a function on Probate System 5, at least on HotDocs Mark. And I'll go into this to confirm in just a moment. Actually, I'll do that right now. So you wanted to see a inheritance tax worksheet. So we'll click to use another template. Get to NebDocs. Probate System 5. And this is the inheritance tax, I believe somebody asked about. Here it is, determination of inheritance tax, the checklist, or the actual form itself. So the worksheet is here. What you would do in this scenario is you would click on the tax worksheet, and what happens is a link comes up. And give me just a second while it's loading this. Oh boy, sorry about that. Let's go back. It's always with the demos that you always get these hiccups. So we'll go back to our larger, more probate. Before I show that inheritance worksheet, another question came in. Can you show us where to begin a new probate client? I saw an option where you can select either new client or continue. So if you want to do a new client, let me just go back. I'll show you how that would work. You go to your NebDocs subscription. You would click on Probate System 5. And because we've already set up our firm and contacts, at least in this scenario, you would simply just go to Open New Probate File, and you'll be prompted to enter the name of the client, or the new client, I suppose. Hopefully that answers the question. Okay, so I'm going to go back to demonstrate that. Let's see, the inventory, or excuse me, the tax data, inheritance tax worksheet, pardon me. So use another template. add a new template. Probate System 5, Nebraska tax, inheritance tax, and we'll click on the worksheet again. Let's see this. Hopefully this will work this time. And if it doesn't, I'll have the Nebraska State Bar reach out to you, and I'll send you an email with the details on how this works. Well, let's look at the checklist here first of all. There's a Word document of our checklist. There you go. So the downside is it does not automatically pull that data in, but it does give you this checklist. Okay, so let's go back to the interview. Oh, goodness. And as far as the document list of what you've created, you'll have the various forms should be listed in this tree here, the various forms that you've put in. Yeah, I just got another message saying that the error message occurs when you click on the tax inheritance worksheet. I'll have the Nebraska State Bar Association follow up with the vendor who created these forms on the bar's behalf and see if they can answer why that produces an error. It's unfortunate. So,
Jonathan?
Yes.
This is Sam. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hey, Sam.
Hi. If you go under the Nebraska tax and then you click on 5.1,
okay,
and you'll see 5.101 inheritance tax worksheet form 500, which is a PDF.
Okay. Nebraska tax. This one here, the 500. Inheritance tax worksheet form 500.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, for whatever reason, it's not opening up for me here.
What it is, it should show as a PDF.
Okay.
And then once you open that PDF, what it says is the Nebraska State Bar Association Inheritance Tax Worksheet is an Excel file that will not operate within the NebDocs system, but it can be downloaded and completed at the link below. And then when you click on the link, it will take you to that Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. Perfect. And my apologies, it's not showing at the moment. I'm not sure why it's not opening up for me, other than it may have already recognized that we had one before. So, yeah, and and Sam, you and I can send a note to the individual who asked that question as well about how that works. So I'll do a screenshot of that once we get this going, because I think we have 1 minute left here in today's call. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I want to thank you for your time. I hope this has been useful and you've been able to see how some of these Probate System 5 forms run. If you have other questions, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call. Sam has my contact information for HotDocs and NebDocs. And that way, he can also weigh in with questions about, or with answers as well. So reach out to Sam Clinch at the Nebraska State Bar Association with any additional questions, and we can set up a time to chat. Thanks again. I believe they have recorded this session, so if you want to run back through this, again, I'd reach out to the Nebraska State Bar Association. Thank you so much for your time. Consider using the NebDocs product, particularly considering it's got all of the Probate System 5 forms included as part of the subscription. At $199 per person, that's I think it comes out to like 56 cents a day, something like that, to use NebDocs in an all-you-can-eat sort of manner. Thanks again, and best of luck to you using NebDocs and Probate System 5. Thanks.